Video cameras? Check. Motion detectors? Check. Emergency generator? Check. TV and DVD player? Check. DVD message? Check. No less than 6 locks on each door, including your bedroom? Check. Stocked fridge? Check. Okay then, said Kim. As she and Ron entered the back of the basement apartment, they had set up a base of operations to deal with Kim's of herself. It had taken a little financing by Wade, but they had managed to get a free bedroom apartment. One bedroom had been set up for Kim, one for Ron, and the third was designed for the one particular purpose. The bedroom was titled and lit with fluorescent lighting. A large desk off to one side, she held a computer. A small filing cabinet in the center of the room was taken up by a large mahogany chair. Lever harness and buckles hung from the sides of the chair. Lever cuffs surrounded the front legs and the armset rests. A keypad with the arm-marked keys was installed at the end of the right-hand armrest. On the small stand in front of the chair was a TV with a DVD player attached to it. Ron had turned to both on and slid the DVD into the player, as Kim sat down in the chair and began buckling herself in. Now, whatever you do, do not let her out unless she agrees to the rules, she said, as she buckled the straps around her ankles. All right, KP, Ron said. And what if she does agree to the rules? Let her out and then gives her this. Kim sat up and took the communicator off of her wrist. She then tossed it to Ron. Make sure she has this on, and get a hold of Wade and make sure he keeps tabs open to where she goes. Whatever you do, do not mess with her. You sure? I mean, I could follow her and make sure she doesn't, do anything, Ron said uncomfortably. Kim noted the tone in his voice and looked up at him. This is about Rule 6, isn't it? She asked softly. Ron blushed and nodded. Kim smiled ruefully. Come here. Ron knelt down next to Kim, who took his face into her hands, brought it close to her own. Ron, at this point, we're both two different people. What she does has anything to do with how I feel about you, understand? And if I give a little on that, then she might be easier to deal with, rather than telling her she can't do anything at all. Ron nodded. But I was hoping that you and me, we could... Ron's face turned into a deep crimson and began hyperventilating. Kim then pulled his face close and kissed him deeply. Then they separated. Kim smiled wickedly at Ron. Once this is all over, Ron, I can promise you now, it will all be so worth it, she said. Ron smiled and then turned yet to another shade of red. Kim grinned and leant back, strapping the harness across her chest. She slid her left hand into the left cuff and her right into the right cuff. Suddenly her head snapped up as she looked at Ron. I could feel her coming. You ready? She asked. She then tapped on several keys on the keypad under her right hand. When she finished, the cuffs on the armchair strapped her wrists to the arms. Ron then stood back and towards the TV, picking up the remote control. Ready as I'll ever be. I love you. I love you too, KP. Good luck, Ron. Good night, Kim. The green eyes closed and the purple eyes opened. The woman who had taken Kim's place looked around slowly, taking her surroundings and the restraints keeping her on the chair, and then Ron standing out in front of her. Her lips parted in a slow, wicked smile. You and Kimmy decided to jump past the vanilla thing right into the kinky stuff. Boy, the shine must be wearing off the relationship that pretty far clip. Ron frowned and tried to keep from blushing. Kim has a message for you. The woman's eyes grinned. She does now? Actually, the hardcore bondage gear is here because... to make sure you pay attention. First of all, Ron answered, because I'm not letting you out until you hear what Kim has to say. The woman then leaned back on her chair with a potent sigh. All right, let's hear what Princess Perfect has so-called mind. Ron held up the DVD remote and from the TV stand and pressed a button. The blue screen on the TV flickered, and then resulted into a picture of Kim sitting on the chair, unrestrained. Hello, said Kim. Obviously I can't see you, but I know you're listening, especially since we set this up, so you aren't going anywhere until you've learned this message. Oh, for God's sake, just get to the point already, the woman said, rolling her eyes. God, talk. No wonder she drives She-Go nuts. Kim on the screen continued. Clearly we aren't going to need some second ground rules if this is going to work for the both of us. I've come up with those ground rules, so if you agree to these rules, Ron will release you from the chair. If not, he will record your counter-proposal, and then you will remain on the chair until the next change happens, and I can review it. We will continue this way until the rules are established to our mutual satisfaction. Now on to the rules. Rule 1, my family, Ron, his family, Wade, his family, and Monique and her family are all off limits. This is strictly between us, and there's no need to involve them. You leave them alone, and I will keep your existence a secret from them. Rule 2, no killing. From what I've seen, hurting people doesn't bother you, so I doubt killing will either. If you kill someone, anyone, I will turn myself in and make it clear to the authorities about what has been happening. Oh, sure, the woman replied to the screen. Just take all the fun out of everything. Rule 3, Kim said. We both keep the communicators on our person into our general vicinity at all times. It will record our activity to be uploaded onto the computer on your left every 12 hours. You will have access to what I'm doing, and I will have access to what you're doing. If the footage shows you've been complying to the rules, I am willing to negotiate blocks of time without surveillance. Rule 4. As it seems it's take us awake while the other is sleeps, I propose working out a schedule of times a day. We both agreed to allow the sleep to flow and to be the other control. Leave your proposed times on the communicator. However, if I'm on a mission when a change schedule occurred, then obviously it can't happen. If that's the case, then at any time that you are shorted on will be returned to you later. And I will even have to agree to make this lost surveillance time free. Oh my god, she actually is trying to be fair about this, isn't she? The woman laughed. She's such a Pollyanna. However, Kim continued, if I'm knocked out during a mission, it proves you do to be enough to allow you to take control over me. You will follow Ron's instructions and comply with all the other rules to bring to the mission to a successful conclusion, at which point you may continue with whatever plans you have, with the lost time due to the mission completion refunded to you. Rule 5. No drugs, no cigarettes. I am willing to concede alcohol, provided it doesn't go access. And when you've added in your name, Wade is provided you with the identification from what I've been told in the video I've seen. It shouldn't be too hard for you to confess and convince other people you're 21. Finally, Rule 6. Kim paused as she was steeling herself for this one. Sex. The woman in the chair perked up and leaned forward. Really? She murmured. I'm not stupid. I am reasonably certain that you're going to try and get it on with when you're in control. Sooner or later, there are 3 boxes of, protection in the bathroom. Each protection in the box is numbered. If you decide to do them, you will use them in order. I want to know how often it's happening. If you need more, leave a note. I'll get more. If you don't use them, I will know. Kim then sighed and shifted into the chair. Now, after an agreement on the rules we've met, if you violate any of them, you will be punished. Most likely being restrained in the chair during your times in control. But there may be another, more severe methods used. Oh, gee whiz, Mom. Do you have to be sort of strict? The woman said in a whiny voice. She then looked at Ron. She really doesn't trust me, does she? No, I don't, came Kim's voice from the TV. Looked sharply at the screen. I figured you just made some commitment about me not trusting you. And you're right, I don't, Kim said. But since we appear to be stuck with each other, I would rather we are able to work with each other rather than just fighting. Now, Kim finally continued, let's talk about what's this in for you. Finally, the good stuff, the woman leaned forward again, as she was able to do. I have decided to let you choose your own name. Once that is done, as I mentioned, Wade will provide you the identification, ligament identification, driver's license, and social security card in the works. You are also welcome in the car. The key to the apartment square on the right on the keychain. You can come and go as you please. There are cameras and motion detectors set up throughout the apartment, and they stay on at all times. This is non-negotiable for your protection as well as mine. At this point, Ron went over to the desk and opened a drawer, pulling out an envelope, and he had held it up as Kim went on. Ron is now showing you an envelope, a There's approximately $150,500 in there for you, taken from my college fund. I will provide another $200 per week for you. Once again, provide you as the rules follow. Ron then opened the envelope and then showed the woman the wad of bills. He put them back in the envelope and set it on the desk, then pointed at the screen. These are my terms, as I said. I am open to negotiation. But if you do not accept, I should point out, though, that Ron will not release you from the chair until the rules are agreed on. I believe that there has been more fair in creating these rules, so we could both have some semblance of a normal life. Spilt as it may be, I strongly urge you to consider accepting. Good luck. The DVD ended, and Ron switched off the TV. The woman looked up at him slowly. So, she said, Ed, those are the rules, huh? Yes, Ron replied, those are the rules. The wicked grin returned. You really think you could take me? If I say agree, then change my mind once I'm out of this chair. I've been through some changes recently, Ron replied. Oh, I know, the woman replied. I still don't think you can take me. I could rip out your spine, though, through your nostrils if I feel like it. Ron frowned. Do you accept the rules or not? Not. Let me out of this chair, and I will. Accept the rules, and I'll let you out. Release me first. Not part of the deal. You accept the rules, and you get out. That's the deal, Ron said firmly. Let me out of the goddamn chair! The woman's face twisted into a mask of rage and anger. She let out an inhuman roar that caused Ron to jump back in surprise. He fought about down on the raw primal terror that had been just triggered in his brain. He walked back towards the woman and knelt down in front of her, meeting her gaze. No, he said quietly. You could scream and howl all you want, but unless you accept the rules, you aren't going anywhere. Deal with it. The two held gaze for a full-on minute before the woman leaned back and smiled again. Well, maybe you weren't just a spineless wimp after all. Okay, Ronnie, you and Kim have a deal. The rules are fair, and I can live with them. Good. Ron came forward and leaned over to the keypad. He paused and looked up at the woman, who was glancing at the keypad. Look up. She snorted and menacingly. She looked at pointing at Ron's groin, and Ron blushed. Higher, please, he said. Oh, you're no fun at all, the woman replied, pointing at the gaze at the ceiling. Ron inputted the code in the pad. The cuffs loosened as he backed away from the chair. The woman looked distraught at him, as well as she slid her hands free and began undoing the restraints. She stood up slowly and began walking towards Ron. Okay, Ronnie. Now a little friendly advice, she said sweetly. As long as the power is flowing to this apartment, and as long as Kimmy can see us, you're okay. But I don't like being talked to that tone of voice, so... The woman's hand then shot out faster than Ron could see and yanked them close. Ron sucked in his breath as he felt the strength of arm that held him. And this is what he saw. The madness was staring at him out of those weird violet eyes. She continued speaking. You hope that you better the power never goes out here. If the lights go out, Kimmy can't see us. The lights are going out for you. You understand? Ron swallowed. Yeah, I got it. Her expression brightened. Good. Now gonna watch some TV for a while before I go out. Bring me something to drink, will ya? Thanks. She then picked up the envelope of cash from the desk and from the pocketed before leaving the room. Ron let out the air out of his lungs and then turned to move towards the TV and DVD player. As he turned, the woman had appeared in front of him, her face having changed of a mask of murderous hate and rage again. She let out another inhuman roar, and Ron leapt out a full fleet in the air. Her face returned to normal and smiled once again. Gotcha! It was about 2 hours later, and Ron was finally relaxing. Kim's alter ego had departed, and he was ready to leave the apartment to go back to his house. He honestly didn't know what to do. Kim seemed to think that the sharing time with her other self was the best solution, but she wasn't too sure, and she didn't trust the other. She was too wild, too mean, and definitely worse than Kim with no morals. They needed to find a cure, and fast. He looked down at Rufus, who was munching on some leftover corn chips. The hairless rodent swallowed a gulp, and his owner, with a quizzical nose. I don't know what to do, buddy. It's not like we can just pound her into submission. And Kim's not around to offer ideas, so we need to find a cure and fast. He got to his feet and put Rufus in his pocket. Time to go. Mom's probably freaking out wondering where we are. Ron threw the chips away and was making his way to the apartment door. He heard a familiar four-note chime at the communicator. His eyes widened, and he began looking for the source of the noise, convinced that somehow Kim's darker self had managed to leave without it. As it turned out, the beeping was coming from the computer in the restraint room. He sat down on the desk and moved the mouse. A window popped open, and Wade appeared on the screen. "Hey, Ron, is Kim there?" he asked. Ron shook his head. "She changed and the other one just left." Wade nodded. "Well, I managed to get Lord Utterson on the line. Want me to patch him through?" Ron considered for a moment. "Put him through, Wade. The sooner we get some answers, the sooner we can find a cure for Kim." Wade tapped in a few keys. His image was replaced with the English nobleman. "Ah, Mr. Stoppable. So good to hear from you again. How are you and Miss Possible?" I'm doing fine, your lordship. And so is Kim," Ron answered uncomfortably. Excellent, Lord Utterson replied. "And now Mr. Lode informs me that Miss Possible had some questions considering your issue you recently helped with." Yeah, Kim's not available right now, Lord Utterson, but she asked me to ask you those questions, if that's okay." "Capital, dear boy. Fire away." "Well, it's pretty much just one question. If you don't mind us asking, what was in your journal you asked us to retrieve?" Lord Utterson frowned, suspicion registering his features. "Why do you exactly want to know that, Mr. Stoppable? Has something happened?" No, nothing major," Ron fought quickly. "We just think that whatever formula was in the journal, the enemy may have used to synthesize some of it before we got there. We're pretty sure it was all destroyed, but we thought we'd better be on the safe side, in case if it turns up somewhere. You know, how we have the antidote ready or something." Lord Utterson's expression turned grim. "Mr. Stoppable, I want to make it very clear to you that if there's any of the formula out there, you must find it and destroy it immediately. It is far too dangerous to allow to exist." "How dangerous?" Ron asked. There was an awkward pause as Lord Utterson collected his thoughts. "Tell me, Mr. Stoppable, are you familiar with the works of Robert Louis Stevenson?" "What, Treasure Island and all that? Yeah, I tried reading it, but I couldn't really get into it. I mean, why did they call him Long John Silver if only he had one leg?" Lord Utterson cleared his throat, interrupting Ron's ramble. "Sorry," said Ron. "Go on. Are you familiar with the strange cases of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?" "Yeah, I saw the movie," Ron said, before coughing in embarrassment. "That will do the purpose for our discussion," Lord Utterson said. "What most people don't realize is that the space story is based on events. My great-grandfather was the professional circulator of the man who wrote that book. Mr. Stoppable, that notebook contained only a set of notes considering the infamous experience of Dr. Henry Jekyll." Ron just sat there on the desk, stunned. After a moment, he opened his mouth. "In the movie, didn't Mr. Hyde eventually—" "Yes, Mr. Stoppable, he did. And as the films in the novel of Dr. Jekyll died as Mr. Hyde, who by that point had taken complete control. And like in the novel, Dr. Jekyll never found an antidote for his formula. My great-grandfather took it upon himself to ensure that all of his experience would never be duplicated. I truly wish now we had destroyed the notebook long before now." "So you're absolutely sure that this is no antidote? Not even some sort of half-formula he put together?" Ron asked, trying to keep the panic out of his voice. "No, Mr. Stoppable. In fact, we tried a few times to create the antidote. Our attempts ended in a failure," Lord Utterson answered, "which is why once again I must impress upon you to make it clear to Miss Possible that if any of the formula has been synthesized, it could either be found and destroyed. The 19th century wasn't ready for Hyde's brand of evil, and I fear the 21st century is just as ill-prepared." Ron's expression now mirrored at the nobleman's. "Don't worry, Lord Utterson. Like I said, we're pretty sure that it was all destroyed in the lab explosion, and if any survived, we'll make sure it's destroyed." Lord Utterson's face relaxed. "Thank you so much, Mr. Stoppable. It's been good to know that you both run such a crew of service. Anything else I can help you with?" "No, I think that's everything. I'll let Kim know. Thanks for your time," Ron replied. "Glad to be of service. Have a good evening, Mr. Stoppable." You too, Lord Utterson. Goodbye." "Goodbye." Lord Utterson disappeared from the screen, and Wade reappeared. Ron looked at him. A serious expression now replaced one with panic. "Did you hear that, Wade?" he asked. Wade nodded. I'm tracking her now. She's at the mall. Doesn't seem to be doing anything much but browsing. Okay. Can you run a scan on her, right? Already done. I'm analyzing now. It's doing it without her knowing that it's going to be the tricky part, Wade answered. Look, go home, relax, and get some sleep. We can let Kim know what's happening in the morning. Ron sighed. All right, God. I hope we still have time. We'll make the time, Wade said. I'll work on finding an antidote. You just keep an eye on both of them. All right, good night, Wade. Night, Ron. Wade signed off. Ron slumped on his chair and reached down into his pocket and held up Rufus. There's no other way to say this, buddy, but I think we're in some deep shit this time. Rufus agreed. Ron then proceeded to have his customary bad news freakout. Across the town, the woman had been Kim Possible was just browsing through the bookstore. She had been trying to come up with a name and really wanted something special. She passed over the names of the fiction, Mr. and Fantasy, Sci-Fi sections, dismissing them as too plain, too trite, or just plain stupid. She was in the classics section now and was pursuing the other offerings there. She had passed over the eyes and the tiles. She picked up a copy of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. She pondered a little bit for a moment and then put the book back on the shelf. Nah, she said, Edwin Hyde sounds too old-fashioned and just plain ugly. She left the classy and then headed over to the other shelf where the mythology books rested. She didn't expect to find much, but then she spotted a copy of La Morte d'Arthur. Intrigued, she picked up the book and skimmed through it. Then she stopped as she got a sections discussing Mordred and the circumstances of his birth. As she read, she spotted a name that held her interest. Ooh, a little tweaking and rearranging name. Yes, that would do quite nicely, she thought. She put the book back on her shelf and made her way back to the mall. Then she made some purchases with the surprise she had in mind for Kimmy. Kim's eyes opened and snapped open when she felt the pressure of her own weight pulling down on her spine. She also felt a coarse wemp around her throat as she was constricting rapidly. She felt something in her right hand and brought it up rapidly, darkening field of vision. It was a sharp, serrated kitchen knife. Kim quickly grabbed the rope and set her free with it, pulled and giving herself some slack, to which it quickly used the knife to saw through the rope. The rope snapped and Kim fell to the floor, dripping the noose off of her head and coughed loudly. Training tried not to force too much air in her lungs too fast. Eventually her vision cleared, and the lightheadedness had left her, but she elected to lay on the floor for a little while. She felt able to sit up, and she did cast her eyes around the ceiling. She realized that she was in her bedroom in the apartment. The rope had been hanging was attached to a large steel hook that had been installed in the ceiling. Overturned chair was lying on the floor next to her. That little, Kim thought. She must have felt the change coming. Then the thing's up, I must have ended up hanging myself to death unless I cut the rope. The question is, she sat up and noticed the icon on the communicator that indicated the message was waiting. She leaned up against the bed, took in a few more breaths, and cleared her head. She retrieved her message. Her alter ego appeared on the screen, grinning wickedly. Hey there, Kimmy. Now I have your attention. Let's talk about my rules. Kim frowned, preparing for the worst. Your rules are, I have to admit, are pretty fair. So I don't really have a problem with them. Except for the one about killing. But hey, you can't have anything. So I only have one rule. The alter expression changed from bright and open to dark and obnoxious. If you try to cure the changes, I will blow my brains out. You can look for one all you want, but if you try to use one... Kim's face was pale as she saw her darker half hold up a pistol. Quabam! And to make no mistake, Kimmy, I will find out. The alter face then returned with the open expression. Now that that's taken care of some pleasant news, I found my name. I was in the bookstore and I found this. The pistol disappeared and was replaced with a copy of the Le Morte d'Arthur. I found it did a character I really liked, and after tweaking a few things, it didn't sound so pretentious. I have a name I really like. So, she said as her expression turning predatory. From now on, you could call me Faye. Faye Morgan. Have a nice day! The image then disappeared as the screen went dark. Kim then stared at the blank screen for a while, mulling over her next move. Oh, so she has a name. Okay, Faye. Let the games begin.